Ignition sequence starts.
Good morning and welcome to this view inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. This is where there's always a team of specialists on duty, watching how the station's systems are doing and working with the 7-person crew to move through their daily tasks and get ready for the days to come. Commander Sergei Ryzhikov and his American, Russian, and Japanese crewmates have spent this week, as usual, working on science operations and station maintenance. But this week they've also been getting everything in order for the first of a new series of spacewalks, which is scheduled to kick off next week.
Houston Station on Space to Ground.
Welcome to Space to Ground. I'm Sandra Jones. This week, preparations are underway for upcoming spacewalks.
NASA astronauts Michael Hopkins and Victor Glover, who arrived to the space station aboard the SpaceX Crew Dragon Resilience in November, are set to venture outside the space station's hatch on January 27th. During the spacewalk, the duo will finish installing the Bartolomeo science platform. Bartolomeo is attached to the Columbus module on the station and serves as a hosting platform for external research payloads. Hopkins and Glover will also configure a Ka-band terminal to enable independent high-bandwidth communication links to European ground stations. This will be the 233rd spacewalk in support of space station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades. Glover and Hopkins will also perform a second spacewalk together on February 1st to complete long-term battery upgrade work. You can tune in to watch the spacewalks live on the agency's website. Live coverage will begin at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time on the day of each spacewalk.
Before suiting up and heading out the hatch for a spacewalk, you may want a fresh fade.
NASA astronaut Victor Glover welcomed fellow NASA crewmate Michael Hopkins to the Space Barbershop for a haircut last week. The special space clippers have a vacuum hose attached to the end to suck up the hair as it is cut. In the microgravity environment of space, the hair would just float around the station and would be quite messy otherwise. Now the duo is ready to spacewalk.
And that's Space to Ground for this week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
While spacewalkers Mike Hopkins and Victor Glover spent time on spacewalk prep this week, the truth is that preparations for a spacewalk actually begin long before the crew members even launch. In this demonstration video, astronaut Ricky Arnold shares some of the training astronauts get on the ground to be ready to walk in space.
Welcome to the Quest airlock on the International Space Station. I'm Ricky Arnold, Expedition 56 flight engineer from NASA. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, extravehicular activity, or EVA. Going out on an EVA or a spacewalk has been one of the most amazing experiences of my life. But it's also one of the most complicated and dangerous things we do during human spaceflight. There's a lot of equipment to prepare and maintain, and we do months of training to make each EVA a success. If you think it sounds complicated, you should see all of it in action. Let's start with training and how we get ready for a spacewalk.
Space is an extreme environment that presents many hazards. If we're going to go outside the safety of the ISS, we have to be prepared. That's why EVAs are designed with safety as the utmost priority. We astronauts spend a lot of time in the classroom, just like you are now, learning about the hardware we'll be using and the specific parts of the space station we'll be working on. Then we get to go spend a lot of time training in NASA's giant pool, called the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, or NBL. Since it's impossible to simulate microgravity on Earth, the next best option is water, 6.2 million gallons of it. The NBL is 40 feet deep, 202 feet in length, and 102 feet in width. A lot of room to have a full-scale working model of the ISS, which we need for practicing our EVA maneuvers and assigned tasks. We get suited up and weighted so that we're neutrally buoyant in the water, so we don't sink to the bottom and we don't float to the surface. It's a great way to simulate the microgravity we'll be experiencing. We do several dress rehearsals of the EVA before we launch. This gives us the opportunity to prepare for any anomalies that may occur. We spend at least 5 hours practicing in the MBL for every 1 hour planned for the spacewalk, so we are very well prepared to execute the EVAs once we are in orbit. Once we are up in orbit, the EVA preparation continues. First, we must perform a pre-breathe protocol to displace the nitrogen in our tissues and help prevent a condition called decompression sickness. During pre-breathe, we breathe 100% pure oxygen and do some light exercise to help purge the nitrogen from our bodies. During pre-breathe, we will also don our extravehicular mobility unit, or EMU. This is a fancy name for a spacesuit. The spacesuit is basically its own spacecraft, shaped like a human. There is usually a red stripe on the leg of one astronaut, but not the other, so the ground can tell who is who. To ensure our safety at all times, we are always aware of our safety tethers and where we are in relation to our spacewalking buddy.
Hey, buddy.
There's a fellow crew member called the IV, the intervehicular crew, on the inside of the airlock, watching and communicating with us as the EVA progresses. We are also prepared for several contingencies should they occur. First, we are trained on the use of a jetpack that can be used to maneuver in the event of an emergency rescue. It's called a SAFER, or Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue.
The view during an EVA is magnificent. It's beautiful out there. It's also extremely dangerous, but our months of preparation and all of those dedicated people working on the ground, working around the clock, ensure we are safe as possible when we work outside the ISS. EVAs have allowed us to build and maintain the ISS, repair mission-critical hardware, investigate malfunctions, install new hardware, and the view, unbelievable. See you next time.
In a few minutes, we'll see Ricky Arnold again with a detailed review of the spacesuits that the astronauts wear when they exit the vehicle. Here on Earth, we've all learned a lot lately about tracking the transmission of disease. You know, microbes live everywhere. And that's why scientists at NASA's Johnson Space Center constantly monitor the bacteria and fungi on the International Space Station. Now they're using DNA sequencing to identify the microbes in orbit without having to return samples to Earth for testing. And that's an important step to keep crews and the places they visit safe on future deep space missions. The International Space Station's laboratory modules support experiments in a number of scientific disciplines. For example, the Flame Design Investigation is looking into the quantity of soot produced under different burning conditions. Now, that could generate data that leads to the creation of new burners that are both more efficient and less polluting. When astronauts go outside the International Space Station, as Mike Hopkins and Victor Glover will do next week, they are wearing what amounts to a human-shaped spaceship. In this demonstration video, astronaut Ricky Arnold gives us a tour of the critical parts of the spacesuit that keeps astronauts safe as they work in the harsh environment of space.
So we are standing in the Quest airlock, which is divided into two parts. We have the equipment lock and we have the crew lock. This equipment lock has a hatch right here that closes, and the crew lock has another hatch. The EMU, or the Extravehicular Mobility Unit, is our spacesuit, and it's divided roughly into two parts. We have the hard upper torso, which is almost like a turtle shell. It's a hard fiberglass shell, and then we also have the lower torso assembly. These spacesuits are our own little spacecraft, and they have everything you need to keep you alive out in space for 7 to 8 hours, maybe even longer, depending on how hard you're working. The only thing that they do not have, and they have radios, it has oxygen, it has carbon dioxide scrubbing, it has temperature control, it has everything you need except for one thing, a restroom. And so when we get ready for our EVA, the first thing we put on in the morning is a diaper, and that's our first layer. Then over the diaper we put on a pair of long johns, and that's to keep our arms and legs from getting scraped up. It also provides a little bit of wicking in case you're getting really hot and sweaty. The next layer is our liquid cooling garment, and the LCVG has little tubes running through it which allow water to circulate inside the LCVG to provide cooling when we're outside working really hard. So we've got the diaper, we got long johns, we got the LCVG, and then we're going to wear our spacesuit. 7 layers from the bladder on the inside, which maintains pressure, and that's a rubberized bladder, all the way out to the white layer on the outside. The crew member inside the spacesuit is also wearing this, what we call a Snoopy cap. It's a communications cap. We have a radio, so we can talk to not only to Houston, but we can talk to people on the space station and to each other. So we wear this communication cap inside the helmet. Also another key component of the EMU, or a spacesuit, is the helmet. You can see the helmet has a gold visor which protects us from the rays of the sun that we can bring down. It's pretty bright out there, and this gold visor helps reflect the rays of the sun so we can actually see and operate in daylight. At nighttime, we can raise this visor up, gives us a clearer view, and additionally we have helmet lights built into the helmet. On top of the helmet, we also have a television camera, so the ground is able to watch us while we work through these TV cameras. The work is really all done with hands, and so our gloves are really our most important piece of equipment in order for us to work outside. And one of the real challenges of a spacewalk is you have this heavy gloved hand which is inflated, so it wants to stay like it's blown up like a balloon. but we walk by grabbing onto handrails and making our way along the ISS. So every time you move your hand, you're fighting against a balloon that wants to inflate. And then on top of that, all of our equipment is based on using your hands too. So after 6.5, 7 hours of kind of fighting against this glove, it's a really long day, and your hands are probably the thing that are most exhausted after 7 hours out on an EVA. Well, we're going out to work. You probably saw me move this mini workstation. The way we carry our tools is on a mini workstation, which is carried on the front. Every single tool we use is tethered to us. We do not want to accidentally create satellites. Our primary way of remaining attached to the ISS, if we're not using our hands, are these waist tethers. And you can see they just have a big hook. They go around a rail or anything else on the ISS and latch on, and it actually has a locking mechanism as well to hold us nice and tight. So we always want to have one of these attached if we're not holding on with our hands as well. The back of the EMU has our life support system. The life support system contains all the equipment we need, from a UHF radio down to the oxygen tanks that provide primary oxygen. One of the challenges inside this sealed environment, it's very easy to carry our own oxygen with us, but we generate a lot of carbon dioxide, particularly when we're out there working very hard. So to combat that, to deal with that, we have these canisters called Medox canisters, which are just silver oxide. They are carried in the backpack along with a very large battery, which provides all the electricity for us. I don't have a battery here to show you today because we're in the process of charging them. We're about a month out from doing a spacewalk, and we've already started getting ready for that. So this Medox canister is able to remove about 7 to 8 hours of carbon dioxide that a human can generate inside the spacesuit. EVAs have allowed us to build and maintain the ISS, repair mission-critical hardware, investigate malfunctions, install new hardware, and the view, unbelievable. See you next time.
The Commercial Crew Program, which developed the vehicle that delivered Hopkins and Glover to the station, is one part of the growing commercial space economy, which the International Space Station has been encouraging for more than 20 years now. The expansion of the commercial use of space not only fosters growth for those companies, it's also aiding NASA as it continues to explore and discover what's out there beyond low Earth orbit.
Those striving to develop their products and conduct research beyond Earth's atmosphere are seeing their visions come to life through the International Space Station National Lab and partnerships with NASA. NASA, in turn, is gaining new resources to aid in its mission of exploration and discovery. Thanks to these partnerships, the world is benefiting from the ingenuity of those who are taking their ideas to gravity's edge. From transportation to satellite deployment to in-space research, a vibrant commercial space economy has been developing, and its value now exceeds $345 billion. Mike Reed is the manager of the ISS Business and Economic Development Office at Johnson Space Center. He explains some of the benefits of NASA investing in the commercial economy in space. Commercialization of low Earth orbit frees up resources NASA needs to continue its exploration of space. Even as NASA prepares to return to the Moon, go to Mars, and continues engaging with other space missions, we'll always need a platform in low Earth orbit. That platform enables crew training, advanced systems development, and fundamental and applied research. But expanding use of the space station to commercial companies enables a new market. By having the commercial sector join us, we can continue our space exploration while providing access to a platform that helps create jobs, build revenues, and ultimately create many new products that are beneficial to people on Earth. In terms of research, many companies are making use of the ISS US National Laboratory to run their research and technology development investigations in microgravity. They include well-known corporations like Procter & Gamble, who have used the station to study colloids with a goal of improving the quality and lifespan of their products, such as shampoo and laundry fabric softener. Merck, the multinational pharmaceutical company, uses the National Lab to study the growth properties of three-dimensional protein crystals. Their work could lead to more effective delivery systems for cancer treatments. Even companies not as well known right now are seeing big dividends coming from their research. Lam Division, for example, is using the microgravity conditions on the station to advance the development for treating the effects of retinal degeneration, with the goal of restoring the vision of those people affected by it. In addition to research opportunities, the space station contributes to expanding the space economy in other ways. Reed explains, the capabilities of launch providers such as SpaceX and Northrop Grumman have grown dramatically over the last decade. The cost of placing cargo into orbit has dropped dramatically, which opens up the space marketplace to many more non-governmental entities who simply could not afford the costs of reaching space before. Now, SpaceX has brought astronauts to the station from American soil for the first time since 2011, and the first time ever on a privately owned launch system. The Commercial Crew Program provides a huge long-term benefit for both private companies and NASA. Today, thanks in part to the space station, commercial and other non-governmental entities are entering the space economy in significant numbers. What these new partnerships can accomplish together will drive the in-space marketplace and NASA's grandest missions to new heights, as well as improving quality of life for people on Earth. For more science and research from the International Space Station, go to www.nasa.gov/ISS-science. To discover more about the space on, around, and beyond our planet, visit science.nasa.gov.
The astronauts who will complete the journeys of the Artemis program will start each of those missions with an opportunity that most human beings don't get, to see the planet Earth from above. It's an experience that has been transformative for many of those lucky enough to have been there. Canadian astronaut David St-Jacques had his first wide-angle view of Earth in December 2018, but he remembers it like it was yesterday.
Launching to space, of course, was a momentous experience, but oddly enough, it was quite familiar because of all the training we had. So those 10 minutes in the capsule riding the Soyuz rocket, there was the vibration, the pressure, the acceleration, the pressure in your seat. But after those 8 minutes of busy time and hyper awareness, if you want, of our environment, is when I had my first view of the Earth from space. The launch was at dusk, so quickly we entered penumbra and into night. And by the time we reached orbit, it was pitch black outside, and shortly thereafter came our first orbital sunrise during the rendezvous to ISS. And I will never forget that sight, the thin blue line of the atmosphere, the curve of the horizon. That's when it became real, really at a gut level. I'm actually in space. We are on orbit. This is not a sim. Because your mind tends to go the reassuring route of pretending it's just a game. But no, that this is reality. We are in space, in orbit. And that view, that sunrise, I'll never forget that. Through the crummy little side window of the Soyuz, still is amazing. It's like burned in my memory. I, of course, spent a lot of time at the cupola, looking at the Earth. And what has always struck me every time I went there is how beautiful the Earth is, how fragile it looks, how alive it obviously is, with the clouds, the water. It's like it's breathing. The auroras, the presence of humans at night, it's obvious with the lights. But is the death around the Earth that's startling. how this beautiful, shining oasis of life is there naked in the middle of pitch black death, the vacuum of space. And then there's the dance of the celestial bodies around. The moon is there, but the moon is just a rock. The sun is just a ball of fire. And here's the Earth, this perfect oasis. So even though I knew this abstractly, like everybody does now, we have all seen those images, to see it with your own eyes, you develop that sense of awe. And also, you cannot go to space and continue, if you were, thinking that resources are infinite. They're obviously not. It's in your face. It's a finite system, a closed loop system. There's no new air, no new water that gets to Earth ever. It's all recycled and has been for billions of years. And it is perfectly balanced and perfectly matched to our needs. We are matched to her. That concrete realization that we belong to Earth and not vice versa, it's kind of a mental shift to see that we just nowhere else we could go. We can talk about colonizing other planets, but you know, kind of smarter and cheaper to just take care of Earth as she is. So that was very endearing, that vision. And I can close my eyes and always go back to the cupola looking at the planet. And that blue line, it's unbelievable. It makes the Earth look alive. She's glowing. Well, the little bubble we live in is tiny. And that was very, in a way, sobering perspective to get. How fragile, unique, and just sacred, really, our spaceship Earth is, and the responsibility we have to be good shepherds of her. It is the home of billions of humans and billions of other species, completely autonomous in the vacuum of space. It's just a miracle. You want to protect her because it is our only spacecraft. The whole of us, we're all astronauts, living in the deadly vacuum of space, kept alive by this beautiful, perfect machine.
If you'd like to get another look at any of the stories we featured today, you can always find them at YouTube and Facebook at those particular addresses right there on the screen. Now, if you're looking for good conversation about human spaceflight, check out Houston We Have a Podcast, our weekly show talking with folks involved in all areas of space exploration. Today, Gary Jordan learns almost all there is to know about the station's newest component, the Bishop airlock, in a talk with Program Manager for NanoRacks, Brock Howe. Go to nasa.gov/podcasts for this week's episode. You'll also find all the previous episodes there and the full library of all NASA podcasts, which you can also find on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud.